We're ready to start DRC for October 7th. First item is a concept plan, Halsey Road, Community Solar in Up County. You're ready to take it away?
Mark Beal, lead reviewer. As Neil said, we have the Halsey Road Community Solar Concept Plan. No major comments came from staff or any of the agencies. This is the applicant meeting to ask any questions they may have.
Good morning, Peter Safari, attorney with McMillan Metro Ferber, for the applicant, and I see Kevin Foster from GLW and Don Zimmerman with the applicant are on, and a few others from GLW are joining also. Thanks, Mark. Agree that there are no real major concerns. We had a few points of clarification, and that's where I'm going to spend most of our time, I think. The first one is comment 5 from DPS zoning suggested that record plat might be necessary. My understanding is for a solar array, there's an exemption from record plat anyhow. Could you clarify maybe planning's position on that?
Yeah, you will not need to do a record plat for this.
Okay, great. Thank you. And similarly, since we're not going through record plat, our plan is for a portion of the property dealing with the solar array and is not proposing any change on the existing residential dwelling. So on comment 2 regarding adding a septic reserve area, we don't think that is part of our application or should be a requirement of our application.
Is DPS well and septic on?
Yeah, hi, Heidi Benham here with DPS Well and Septic. So our guidance from the state has been anytime there's solar like this on a property, if there is an existing dwelling, that dwelling have a septic area established prior to approval of installation of the solar panels. I think the first step, though, is to identify at least where, I think one of the comments was the existing septic system location. I don't think we had any records of where that septic system is currently. Is anybody aware of where the septic system is for the property or what it consists of?
No, we have not done any investigations for that, but we certainly can. Yeah.
Okay, so I think establishing where that septic system is, the problem is there's no guarantee. I mean, without soils testing, obviously we won't be able to identify any type of reserve area. This property wouldn't have already had a reserve area, you know, based on the age of the dwelling. You know, there's plenty of area near their house where it possibly could go. But the nature of, you know, perk testing is such that, you know, you don't really know until we start doing those excavations. So I think we could probably take this conversation offline, separately to discuss. But what I think our first step is identifying where the existing septic is for now.
Yeah, and thank you. And I think when following up on this one is a good idea. And when we do, whoever your contact was from the state, I think it'd be helpful for them to join the meeting also.
Yeah, for sure. We could definitely arrange that. Yeah.
Thank you. I'll just tick through a couple of quick things. Keith Bennett from GLW is on. Keith, the comment on 10% impervious cap, can you give some response to that?
It should be minimal. You know, these posts are driven in, so there's minimal concrete. We'll have concrete for surrounding fence, the fence posts, so we'll calculate that. And the only other concrete would be for the transformer. So that's the extent of it. We'll prepare that.
Hey Keith, this is Doug Johnson. You also have to take into account the existing imperviousness with what's already there. If it's within the PMA boundary line, the existing impervious has to be calced as well.
Right, will do.
Okay.
Yeah, there's really not, compared to the size of the property, there's really not a lot there. We'll include those details.
Thanks, Peter.
Thank you. And Keith, the 50-foot setbacks, we're compliant there. We'll mark those off a little more clearly on the updated plans.
That's right.
Comment from Mark Beal on the details of the proposed agrivoltaics. So my understanding there, and I have Don Zimmerman with the applicant on, my understanding there is we have a tentative agreement with the landowner for sheep farming and sheep grazing, which is consistent with the state law for agrivoltaics. And so we can provide more details with our formal application, but if you have any questions, we can talk about those also.
No, that's fine. Just provide them with the mandatory referral application, please.
Okay, great. And then last item on my list is DPS comments. I think we just may need some clarification on, I'm sorry, in the DOT comments rather. We may just need some clarification from DOT. Was the comment back to provide dedication for frontage improvements, or was there a request for the frontage improvements to be installed?
I think more than anything, this is Brenda with DOT. I think more than anything, just a clarification of what is existing. I don't think that you need to dedicate more. However, you do need to show a swale. It's just that the cross section that was provided was a little bit confusing.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Kevin, Keith, any questions about that?
Yeah, we were just trying to clarify what was going to be required of us as far as dedications or anything else along Halsey Road. So I guess the question is, are we going to be required to dedicate right of way or not?
Is this Rebecca from DOT? Is the road in the right of way?
Currently, there is no right of way out there. All of the road is either on our property or on adjacent lots, but there's no, it's all prescriptive out there.
So is it, well, so two things. It's supposed to be a public roadway.
Yes,
So
yeah, it is.
And so for it to be a prescriptive right of way, the county would need to take action, according to our attorneys. We would request that you provide the road in right of way along with a swale, so that if in the future DOT or anybody has to do improvements in that area, we have the right of way and the water is within right of way. So if it's, what's a country road? So it's 70 feet of right of way, which is a minimum. So you would show us that your half, it depends on where the road is. So this plan's really hard to read for where the road is. We would request that you provide the road pavement section and the swale, not necessarily construct the swale, but if we do construct a swale, that it would be in right of way. And you can do that through a deed plat. Excuse me, deed. It does not have to be platted. But yes, we would request that because that makes it a prescriptive easement. Again, the county attorney needs to make a determination. The county executive actually and council would need to actually make it. So right now, basically the public is using the road, but there's no specific, there was never anything done that the county made a decision on that said it's a prescriptive easement. So again, we'd ask you to dedicate your half of the road, provided it's down the middle or whatever. And so if we can get a zoomed in look of that roadway along your frontage, we could make a better determination.
And so is the direction then, is it dedication and conveyance or dedication while retaining the fee?
So, we look at, so there's fee simple, which is you completely giving up the land,
Yeah,
and us owning it. That's not what we normally do. We do a
Uh-huh.
dedication of right of way, which means you own the underlying rights.
right,
And so you retain the density of that land.
right.
But again, it's done through deed. We allow that because, you're not required to plat.
Understood. Kevin, any other questions on that?
Not right now. I guess we'll have to
Yeah.
have some follow-up discussions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Peter, this is Tim. I had a quick question. Did I hear that we need to build the road? Because I
No,
thought
I
that's
never
what I
said
heard.
that. There was no word in building. That was never discussed. I said that I would like to see the right of way so that if we need to build, if the county or some other future developer, something happens, something changes, then we would have the right of way to construct the swale.
Thank you.
If I can just, hi, this is Carlos Pasmino from Montgomery County Transportation. Well, don't worry about it. If you could clarify also the cross section and include the dedications as well. Kind of looking at an interim dedication, just to further allow a breakdown of the different dedications and the swales too. That will be very helpful, at least in clarifying the existing cross-section plans. So kind of like a mix of what you have in the top and the bottom.
Yep, not a problem.
Kevin, Tim, Keith, is there anything else on your list? Those were the main comments, questions that I had.
Nope, that's it for me.
Okay. Good. All right. Well, thanks, everyone.
Yep. Thank you.
All right.
for DRC. It's a pre-preliminary plan in Up County, the Margaret M. Rast Trust property. Jonathan Casey will start.
Good morning, I'm Jonathan Casey with Up County. Just cover the basics. This is a pre-preliminary plan, but as we discussed on the phone, you're basically just looking for this kind of a feasibility study. Look at how many units you can potentially build here. We did have, I would say, fairly significant comments on the layout. And I'm not sure that you got all of the comments. We've been experiencing a little bit of technical difficulties with E-plans, and not all of the change marks showed up on the PDF that you received. So I'm not sure if you actually received all the comments. There are a number of comments on sheet 5 from me that did not show up on that summary sheet. So if you want to kind of start with the reviewing the other agencies, perhaps DOT would like to get us started.
Actually, I was hoping Mark Etheridge.
Or we can start with Mark Etheridge.
Hey, this is Andrew Kohler. I don't think Mark's on today, but I can jump in for him on behalf of MCDPS Water Resources. So the layout for the stormwater management is problematic with the setbacks for the wells and layout. It will be difficult to provide full stormwater management based on that information shown. So that's significantly problematic. Thanks.
Do we have a well and septic on the line?
Yes. There are a lot of things that a lot of updates that'll need to be made for well and septic. I'm in the process of reviewing EMAD's last submission for water table testing. So I'll need to get some remarks back to him probably before the end of this week for a revised plan to be sent in. That's something that'll have to. It's kind of holding things up because the water tables tests. Well, more water table tests will need to be done, but they can't be done until the early spring when wet season opens back up. But right now we're just in the process of trying to get a plan approved that will work, that shows potential SRAs, septic reserve areas that could be used, so that I can mark water table tests accordingly for that.
Thank you. Marie?
Do you just want me to report my comments?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So as submitted in E-plans, I do need you to dimension pavement width and radii. The biggest thing on this appears that you have dead ends that are greater than 150 feet without compliant turnarounds. You can send me a sketch, send me an email. I'll return a sketch on what those turnarounds can look like. You're always free to email me and I will return reviews. There's no fee associated with that. Your radii at your aprons for connecting to the main street appear to be inadequate. I'm looking for at least 25 feet or 35-foot driveway apron, depending on if you're doing, I guess, private streets, you'll actually need the 25-foot radii. And then water supply. You will be required to install a minimum 30,000 gallon tank with dry hydrant to serve this property. So that needs to be laid out. Again, feel free to reach out anytime and I'm happy to return reviews.
Thank you.
DOT, you cannot do curb and gutter out of here. It has to be swale. And you need to use the complete streets requirements. Technically, you need to provide turnarounds for all roads, even if they're private. And I don't recommend there's the design, the additional roadways that you show just seem excessive for this area. So once you have to take in, a tertiary roadway, probably around 64 to 74 feet, depending on if you have sidewalks.
Country road standard.
So what's country road with the swale? So you need the swales, you need the roadbed. The roadbed's a minimum of 20 to 21 feet, probably with swales that all have to be in right away. So at this point, the design doesn't necessarily work, especially with the roads. The roadway to way width is not going to meet standards.
Does park and planning staff have any significant comments to add to that? Do you have any questions for staff or the county agencies?
And no, I mean, to your point, this is Imad from Wiles Mensch. To your point, I don't know that I have all the comments. I'll check again online. I think I have 3 pages of comments. It sounds like there's obviously more and obviously some significant ones. Yeah, Dustin, to your point, we understand the water table testing is going to open early spring of next year. Our intention really was to get this layout, which was somewhat socialized at some point with the county, but needing to fine tune it. And yeah, we understand. I went through some of the comments. We'll go back and revise these to the best of our abilities, and get everything to play nice between our stormwater management and our intention with dry wells. I'm sorry, with the well and septic, and get something resubmitted that's hopefully more amenable.
And Emad, I just want to let you know. So one thing we saw with the last submission was that the primary well and the alternative wells have to be at least 50 feet apart.
Okay.
And you have to make sure they meet that 30-foot setback from the proposed buildings. Yeah, and I understand. So last submission we had where we did go out and do some water table tests, it got messy because the whole design is now changing.
Right.
So yeah, just make sure you're aware of all of our setbacks and where things need to go, because I understand this last submission might not look anything like the next submission based on what they want with the roads and things like that.
Got it. No, understood. Appreciate that. We'll look to, obviously you want to get as many lots as you can, and obviously, there's different things that prevent that. So our next layout hopefully is a derivative of this, maybe with a few fewer layouts, but obviously complying with all the standards. So we'll go back at this. I will try to just make sure. I'll probably reach out just to ensure that we have all the comments, because what the owner and I are going to do is kind of just sift through these, get an understanding, get things laid out appropriately at that point, and resubmit for input. And then hopefully, I mean, ideally, obviously, we'll probably have that well before testing season opens. But then that's kind of the second leg of confirmation of what this layout would become. If that makes sense.
Yeah, and there's nothing keeping you from submitting another concept. Submit another pre-preliminary plan, unless you want binding advice from the board, or you want the board to give you non-binding advice. A concept plan is your best route as far as processes moving forward. If you just want to bounce things off of the agencies. Also, the comments that didn't show up, if you go into each plan, next to each plan, you'll see a little red exclamation point. If you click on that, those comments do show up.
Perfect. Okay. Understood.
This is Doug. This is Doug Johnson, environmental planner. I just need to highlight that since these lots are really constrained, You have to keep in mind that the septic fields cannot be within the stream valley buffers.
Got it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. If you have any questions, feel free to give me a call.
All right. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Number 3 on today's DRC agenda, Burtonsville Commuter Garage and Towns, a concept plan in East County. Tamika, if you're ready, go ahead.
Sure. Thanks, Neil. Good morning, everyone. And good morning, Aaron and team. I'm sorry, I can't see the full list of your team, but hello there. We said this before in many of our past meetings, and I'll just say it again in light of all of the positive things going on to reinvigorate Burtonsville. This project is really a step in the right direction in terms of bringing residential and open space. So we appreciate all your efforts thus far and having productive meetings to talk about this concept. I really want to summarize our comments across 4 areas quickly so I can turn it over to you. We just want to touch on our big comments for the environment, urban design, transportation, open space. And I really want to lead with the environmental aspect because the project, as you know, has requirements for forest conservation, the environmental guidelines because of the Patuxent primary management area. We also have the impervious and tree canopy goals, reduced imperviousness and tree canopy goals with the master plan. There's also the noise guidelines, and then there's also tied to the FCP with the priority urban forest. So there's a lot going on with the environment, and we think that if we address these comments foremost, that all the other elements will fall into place. In terms of the FCP, we've noted the comments about how the requirements need to be addressed independently of the landscaping. And then also the noise was another major item for us, and we did flag, not shown on the screen here, not labeled on the screen here, but strings numbers 12 and 15 as needing to be rotated to address to avoid further noise impacts into the interior of the development. But overall, we really want to underscore that the next step in this process should be initiating the NRI FSC if you haven't already, because that's going to help us determine delineate the PMA. We also noted there's some possibly some perimeter forest. So there are other things that we really need to pin down to allow everything else to fall in place. So again, we just want to reiterate that the environmental elements of this project is really key, and we need to address those first and foremost. And then secondly, with the urban design, with respect to the layout, again, we appreciate your efforts in all of our past meetings. We know that you're taking into consideration all the things that we've said. In our comments, we suggested that we take a step back, perhaps, if you've already done the exercise of evaluating the garage in a different location. We really want to hear that feedback. We want to hear, if it worked, why didn't it work? Why did the garage end up where it is currently? It's our understanding that it's not necessarily a fixed location, and considering the iterations that we've gone through, it might be beneficial to explore some alternative locations with the garage. And we also have some past staff drawings that you may have seen probably from a few years ago that was produced in collaboration with DGS. So we do have some images or our staff drawings that were done that did re-envision that garage somewhere else. And overall, we really think that the relationship between the pass-through area with the shopping center, as you know, that was a recent improvement the shopping center invested in. We are really happy that that's there, and we hope that the terminus may look a little bit different. But again, if you've contemplated the garage being in a different location, we really want to hear that. We want to have a conversation about that. And then also with the transportation in our comments, I think you saw that we reiterated a lot of things that we talked about previously with the access points along National Drive. With this iteration, it seems that they have increased. We'd like them to decrease again. We're concerned about the many access points that are there that turn into conflict points. We've also flagged some site distance concerns at a number of key locations. So as all these things start to fluctuate, hopefully those conflict points or concern points will be eliminated. And then this is sort of tied to the location of the garage, but we also have concerns about that sweeping bus access aisle and how close it is and just how all those movements will work. So, we really appreciate you taking another look at that. And then with the open space, it was shown previously, I think in an iteration you had it in a different configuration, but this one it's primarily encumbered by the fire access, and we did provide the code section that really prohibits this particular design. It's not really an asset to the community when it's completely encumbered by the fire access. And we also know that stormwater management is also going to place demands on the open space. So we really like you to take another look at that. And then as you do that, that would offer an opportunity to look at how the streets and the alleys are arranged. And we think that it's possible for the fire access to be satisfied from the streets and the alleys. So we want to keep the door open to achieving it that way. In terms of process and a path forward, we know this, your desires to have this as a speed to market. We also want to move it as quickly as possible. Based on where we are now, based on the number of comments, we think that it might be beneficial to submit another concept plan before you do your actual submission, so we can really pin down, like I mentioned, a lot of those environmental things first, so we can go into the review, just having a better idea of what we're dealing with. But in this conversation, we're happy to talk more about the path forward. So I'll turn it over to you, Erin.
Thank you. Hold on, I'm just making a note so I don't forget. Okay. Yes, so we've been through all your comments. Thank you for being so comprehensive. We do think it's helpful. We wanted to touch on a couple just clarifying points to start. One is the garage. This is just from kind of questions that came through in the DRC comments. The garage is going to be 3 stories. There's questions about how tall it would be. The project will be standard method. Someone made an assumption it'd be optional. And the phasing, there was questions about phasing. A lot of the phasing is driven by the county and their needs to preserve certain areas of parking and certain numbers of parking as the garage is built. So hopefully that background helps a little bit. With regard to the NRI was submitted a couple weeks ago. So I'm not sure where that is. I don't know if Jack on our team was able to find out from WSSI where it was, but it should already be under review. So I just wanted to flag that. Some of the things, noise impacts, I mean, obviously we assume that a noise study would be needed as part of a site plan. And obviously the environmental, tree canopy, all that stuff. I think what we're hoping to accomplish with the concept plan is really laying down how it's going to lay out. And then we'll get into those details. I think, just being perfectly frank, going through the concept plan process multiple times defeats the purpose of a speed to market, because speed to market's supposed to be fast. And if we could just keep spending time. So I think our preference at this point would be to move into the actual applications. And that's where we'll be able to provide some of the detail that I think that staff is looking for in some of these comments. I mean, frankly, some of it's just too early to talk about exactly how stormwater will be handled and stuff. We need to make sure we have the actual layout done first. Speaking of layout, we do hear the comment, and the comment has come up before about reevaluating where the garage would be located. It was studied extensively by our team. They can chime in, see if you can chime in if you want as far as its location, but it really wants to be there. I mean, obviously that's where the on-ramp and the off-ramp are converging. We think there is benefit to it being where the new cut through is in the shopping center. It allows for easier access for those people who are using both the garage and the center. And it's at the existing bus stop. So I don't know, Steve or anyone else, if you want to get into that design, but I think from our standpoint, it really has to be where it's shown.
Yeah, we looked at a few different places and we wanted to make sure that the garage was kind of where the breezeway in the shopping center is. Also, the bus stops don't really move. They're right where they were, right where they are now. So we really think that's where the garage wants to be. That's really all I have. We looked at a few different places and we didn't really want any buses to cut through the neighborhood or be around the towns if we had, help it. So go ahead, Aaron.
Steve, Steve, how about if I can also chime in? As part of we've been working on the concept plan for a couple of years now, actually. And DOT determined, and it's not only DOT buses here, MTA uses this, WMATA uses this for their buses. DOT actually engaged one of their consultants to look at bus operations and turning. And this is really the only location that works for, and that can accommodate all the turning movements and all of the operations at this location. We did try looking at it at the southern part of the site, and we just can't make that work because we have access from all different points.
Thanks, Ronnie.
Hi, this is Carlos Pazmino from Montgomery Planning and Transportation Planning Division. In the auto turns, were you able to also do a circulation analysis internally through the garage as well, within those within that review between the north and south side of the garage?
I think Arcadis did that for DOT. I'd have to go back and look.
Okay. Could you provide those auto turns and those diagrams in the next submission?
If they were done, we'd be more than happy to do that for you.
Thank you.
And this is Roberto Duke with Design. Had a quick question. So since the garage will be located where it is, with your submission, could you provide details on the facades, especially the one facing the shopping center and facing the units to the south? How will those facades be treated? And are there possibilities for murals or artwork, to better integrate with the shopping center and the townhouses?
Yes, we saw that comment and we will include that in the submissions. I also wanted to know, obviously we've been working hard and I think collaboratively to try to come up with the layout. And some of these things is really just, we need to understand priorities. The reason that we flipped the orientation of the units along National Drive is because we were hearing loud and clear there was concerns about units facing the back of house of the shopping center. So we thought we solved that problem with flipping them, and now there's too many curb cuts and it almost seems like there's a preference to go back. So we would appreciate some input on that aspect. And whether, is it just the curb cuts that is the concern? We might be able to run them from the east instead, or is it the orientation of those units that's a concern?
It's a couple of things. Definitely the number of curb cuts. It's also the open space configuration. It's also the noise, as I mentioned. So you will have some rotating of the rear units that may impact how the western half of the site is oriented. We did flag that National Drive. It should also be an important thoroughfare through this project. So I think that's where the comments were coming from, to have the units facing on it. But yeah, there is It's challenging because, this property is facing the back of a shopping center. So we did, and you're right, Aaron, we did previously use another development project that was oriented this way. But I think the difference between those two is that this particular shopping center doesn't have a true facade on the rear, whereas the other project, the rear almost looks like a front. And so, I think that's one of the challenges that we're dealing with National Drive.
But am
I
I hearing right that between the curb cuts and the frontage, you want to go back to the units fronting National Drive?
believe so.
Yeah, but there needs to be some better understanding of how to make that present, the National Drive more look like a real street. You know what I mean? So we understand that you don't have control over the rear of the shopping center, but I think we talked about things, whether it's like a double row of trees or something that really like gives the east side of National Drive like look like a real neighborhood street. So I think that that would be another thing that we'd be looking for as a strategy to try to soften that transition between the two uses.
Street trees contiguous to the roadway with a sidewalk. And then, front yards and everything. Also, one of the other things I wanted to mention too was that we wanted to make sure that, all the units have a good, or all the streets have a relationship so that there's, enough space for trees and a sidewalk. For all the internal streets to the site too.
Yeah, and we discussed, we obviously had a team meeting yesterday where we were going through the comments. And there were comments about the cross section for the internal streets, National Drive. We think we can meet all of those actually without any problem. That we do have the dimensions. We just need to obviously go to that level of detail of showing exactly what it looks like.
Great.
So that brings us to open space and fire access. So I'll have to defer to others, but we don't think that we can provide alternative access. Jack or Steve, do you want to explain that?
Well, I'll let Jack chime in, but as to what exactly that fire access will look like, I don't see that as a problem in so much as it's not like we're building a road. It's going to look like the open space. And, let's face it, no kids will be out playing if there's a fire. I mean, it's either, it can be a fire access and open space at the same time. So Jack, I'll my engineer chime in, but what exactly do you envision that looking like?
Yeah, so chiming in. So this is Jack Scanlon with Land Design. I hope everybody is doing well today. Thank you for the time here and meeting with us. I think as we've gone through the iterations of this layout, the big thing that we try and keep in mind is really making a community that's high quality and a place where people want to live. I know on the previous iteration we were fronting the back of house there, and that came to be kind of a big. We kind of realized that we're fronting to the back of house, and that wasn't as desirable. And we wanted to connect the open space through to the breezeway there in the shopping center. And so that was our kind of theme here with this iteration, that linear open space park would be, it would meet the requirements of the common open space of being 50 feet wide. It's linear. It just crosses over a private street, but it gives connectivity to the whole neighborhood. And then there's sidewalks that, allow for pedestrian circulation through the neighborhood to the other community park landscape areas. So that was kind of a real theme to this approach. But as far as fire access, the minimum width's 20 feet. And, this is just emergency fire access. So we would try and blend this into the community where it might be brick pavers that are rated for the appropriate fire truckloads. But it's not just fire, it's also emergency ambulance access. And so the emergency access requirement is to have 50 feet to the front door or to the door entry of the units. And on previous projects, some have gotten away with allowing fire access to just be from the main streets because they've or the private alleys, and that's because they usually have an entry at the alley, and our products don't allow for that here. We can't put a door in the alleys here along with the garage door. So the main reason is that we need access to the fronts, and so it would be emergency only. This wouldn't be like an everyday roadway, and we could blend any curb openings into the street line to where it wouldn't appear that that's an appropriate entry for anybody to utilize. And I guess finally on the curb cuts on National Drive, I mean, we don't really have to punch the private alleys out to National Drive. We could eliminate those. It just might be some good dead end alleys for folks to work around each day as they commute to and from their neighborhood.
Will you have street trees or trees within the open space? You know, it would be nice to provide some shade and everything, a shade element, and not just hardscape and just ornamental plantings in that area.
Yes, absolutely. We intend to have planter boxes at the front of each unit to help meet stormwater requirements, and we could landscape those along with putting additional landscaping in the 50-foot landscape area, just not in the 20-foot dedicated access aisle. That might just be a decorative paving material. You wouldn't even notice that it's really intended to be a fire access route other than it'd be 20-foot clear.
Well, just to add on to what Roberto was asking, this is Sandra Pereira, Urban Design Supervisor. We had concerns with the way that you're showing fire department access requirements overlapping with open space, and primarily because of the functionality of that space. We feel like it's going to be mostly hardscape, so limited areas for landscaping, lawn, and potential amenities, as well as furnishings. Like you can't, within the fire department access, we can't have certain furnishings that we would have in other open space areas, like benches, streetlights, trash receptacles. There's limited usage and functionality of that space, which is a concern. We also have concerns with the additional curb cuts that you now have leading up to the Muse, which if you look at that private drive, there are a number of curb cuts for the alleys. There's a curb cut for the Muse, and that interrupts pedestrian and bike circulation on those sidewalks. It's not ideal for safety. It creates a confusing situation for cars. And we just think that the way that you're showing your main central open space completely overlapping with fire department access, it's compromising the functionality and the use of that space. And then in addition to it, the code also has language specifically under the open space section that prohibits some certain uses under 59.633B that say open space must not include street, parking, or maneuvering area for vehicles. So we are struggling to make that, to see how that is being met when you're showing fire department access on the majority, if not the totality of that Muse area. I'd like to hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah, certainly.
I'm not sure we agree that that's, will a vehicle be maneuvering when there's an emergency? Like, I'm not sure that we may have to agree to disagree on the intent of that provision, because I don't think that this was what was intended. I think part of the problem is, I think we are all going to recognize this is a tight site, and we need, we all would like to see a certain amount of density here. And we have this push and pull, and we're having it on other projects of, we need, the requirements for fire access are what they are, and we need to accommodate them one way or the other. I think what Jack is saying and what we'd like to be able to demonstrate to you is that this could actually be a very, very attractive space that people would not even know was intended to serve also as a fire lane. I don't think necessarily just because it's going to have pavers instead of grass should disqualify it. And obviously this is a conversation, I know we're getting short on time, that we'll just have to continue to have. And I hear you on the curb cuts. It sounds like we're already going to be reevaluating that National Drive frontage.
Yeah, I
Jack,
would
go
just
ahead.
add some flavor that the buildings are, that's a 50-foot common open space area, a 20-foot fire access lane, and 5-foot front yards as well. So you've got 60 feet from building to building, and only 20 of that would be emergency access only. So that leaves 40 feet where we'll landscape, we'll have benches, we can amenitize, we can have little nooks where we can create, some placemaking there. So as Aaron mentioned, I think we have every interest to make this a homely, common open space area that people want to utilize. But we'd like to work with you on that. We do see that this could work. And like Aaron mentioned, this isn't like an everyday road. This is emergency only. We can show other examples where we use brick pavers and others, and you wouldn't even notice that it's an emergency access route.
Hi, Aaron and company. This is Amy Lindsay, Environmental Regulatory Supervisor. I just want to make certain that when you're scheduling your follow-up meetings, because it definitely sounds like we've got a number of issues to hash out, that you please include an environmental planner, include Marco in your meetings, because I hear that there are a lot of issues that need to be met, but they need to be met in a way that it meets the requirements of the Patuxent PMA, as well as those spelled out in the master plan. So we hear that there are a lot of issues. We just don't want this to get lost in the shuffle.
Understood. Yeah. And I think we understood that from Tamika, that she led with environmental. So she was giving you a shout out, Amy. We know there's a lot of work to be done there. I know we're super short on time. The other thing we wanted to be sure to hit was there was comments, as we understood them, where the along National Drive, just south of the garage, where the bus aisle was proximate to the private street. And this was another thing that we separated those because of the direction we thought we heard before, that there wasn't, people didn't want it to be too wide. So I think that's another question that we had is do we want to explore combining that again, or are there thoughts on how best to address that?
I think hi, this is Carlos from Planning and Transportation Plan Division. I think we still need to see some of the outer-turn diagrams to make a more cohesive assessment. And I think an internal conversation is going to be needed to figure out the best possible design. There are several elements here that create a lot of very problematic conflict points between bus traffic, regular traffic, and potential residential traffic. So, not to take too much time out of the meeting, but I would say that as it is currently designed right now, it is problematic just for the creation of all of these conflict points and also pedestrian conflict points.
This is Richard Brockmeyer. I'll just add, I think part of it would be understanding the dimensions of how they're being separated.
Right.
And the crossing for pedestrians across that area. I understand trying to keep the width down, but also what is that dimension? Is there a refuge? So I think probably further discussion on that.
Yeah. Also, will there be a
Okay.
crosswalk as well too? I think I do see a pedestrian crossing between the towns and the garage, but how is that related to how will that navigation be be visualized effectively?
Okay. That's helpful to understand.
Aaron, just very briefly, I just want to clarify the noise analysis is needed at the time of subdivision because it would influence the layout of the lots.
Yeah, and we're intending to do a joint preliminary plan and site plan.
Okay.
So,
And if I can just circle back on one item too, and this relates also to fire access. Please include us on the conversations if they relate to design for fire access, because I think it overlaps with our concern about the internal bulb outs for parking as well. We do think that the current design is a little problematic in terms of turning movements and also internal navigation for emergency vehicles within the private streets in relation to the fire access route as well. So, yeah, we just want to make sure that we're also hitting that point as well.
yeah, and I actually, you're right, I had the bulb outs on my notes. Jack can speak to it. I think we're fine taking out the bulb outs. And then we were talking yesterday about improving the turning, because we did get that comment from Marie.
Yeah.
So we know that's something that we'll be working on.
Great. Thank you, Aaron.
And what's the typical spacing? I guess you have the, a tree planting strip, sidewalk, and then what's your spacing you think for your like side yards and front yards?
We currently have 5-foot fronts and 5-foot side yards. Yeah, we currently have 5-foot fronts and 5-foot side yards. We're providing a grass strip and sidewalk everywhere except the southernmost private street. Just due to site dimensions, we're unable to provide the grass strip on that southernmost private street. On the other streets, we, like Aaron said, we'll remove the bump outs and the on-street parking that was causing site distance issues, and we'll evaluate ways to provide alternative means of guest parking.
I think with that southernmost street, we'd want to see a consistent street section in terms of, are there opportunities to provide that planting strip, so that the sidewalk isn't contiguous to the roadway.
And we know you're still early in the design process, so you're still refining your plans. But as you continue to refine your plans, this is something that's really important for us to have adequate front yard depth for the townhouses to ensure, just like Roberta's saying, enough space for the sidewalks, covered stoops and porches, street trees, all those elements that make, the community, add to community identity and also to the community character.
Yeah. And I included in my comments too, that within our complete streets design guideline, the internal private street should follow a neighborhood street, 6-foot sidewalk, 6-foot buffer. I think that's a pretty good kind of step into following through with an internal design for the connection.
Yeah, we did see that, and thank you. It was helpful getting the dimensions. That was all I had on my list. Does the rest of the team have anything?
I think that was all I had on my list. I think you hit everything.
Great. So thank you again for all of your comments. I think, there will be some follow-ups, obviously conversations that we'll want to be having. But our intent is to start moving toward the more detailed design of preliminary and site plan. And then I'm sure we'll be having many more conversations from that. But to the extent that we are going to toy with the layout a little bit more based on what we heard today, we'll certainly circle back.
That sounds good. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thanks all.
Very good.
This is Neil Bronstein. We're on item 5 for DRC today. It's a concept plan, Hermitage 13110 Lay Hill Road in East County. And if you're ready to start.
Thank you all for joining. I'm Mariah Claiborne, the lead reviewer, excuse me. But this concept plan is proposed to convert parcel into a buildable lot. So I'm unsure if you all are aware, but in 2008, this came in for proposed subdivision as well. And the major impacts still reside today, which are environmental. So I'll kick it over to the applicant to see if you have any questions, Mike, or anything about the comments that were provided to you on Friday.
Yeah, I did receive the comments. Thank you all. I really appreciate it. And I did kind of realize that the main issue is environmental. We show 100-foot stream valley buffer from the stream currently. Based on the comments from the environmental reviewer, it appears that a bigger, larger buffer is required. Is that the case?
Yes, this is Bianca, the environmental reviewer. According to the environmental guidelines, also this site is located in a use for watershed, and the minimum stream buffer requirement for use for is 125 feet. So yeah, that's all in the environmental guidelines, and also some other inclusions in the possible inclusions in the stream buffer would be the steep slopes, but then yeah, this will need a approved NRI FST.
Sure. The other question I had was, I looked at it, I looked at the comments obviously, and I did do a follow-up on my own with trying to figure out what the impact would be with a 125-foot stream buffer. I feel like it's still possible to rearrange the building itself, the design of the building potentially, and still try to get something out of this for one house, even with a 125 feet buffer. The slopes coming up the site towards the house are not extravagantly steep. The slopes closer to the stream bed are somewhat steep, obviously, but then once you get out of there, in other words, where the edge of the stream buffer would be on the top bank of the stream, then I think that it's not really that steep anymore. So I feel like with a 125-foot buffer, we can still do something if we rearrange the footprint of the building and the house. It's possible to make it work. If I could do that, how would I follow up? Would I present another concept? Is that something that I can do?
It's up to you, really. I mean, so if you still have like big questions that you think would be valuable in going through this process, you could submit a concept plan as many times pretty much as you want. But if you're getting clear direction, it may make sense to move forward with an administrative subdivision at that time. I think it's kind of up to you based on all of the comments that you get.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, ordinarily, that might be a way to go. I just, the concern is to not spend a whole lot of money while we try to figure this thing out. And that's why I'm talking about another concept, because once you get to the administrative subdivision, then there's a whole lot of other work to be done and plans to be submitted and all that. So that's kind of where I'm coming from.
Okay. What were you going to say, Mariah?
I was going to say too, but making sure that the proposed development, when you do change the structure of the house, make sure that it definitely fits within the R90 development standards. Because my concern would just be that with the extension of the stream valley buffer, it may just encroach on the development standards for the setbacks. So would it be advisable to move forward with an NRI first?
Maybe, yeah, and I can present that idea to the applicant. That might be something that we can do. Can you clarify when you say the zoning requirement? Because once we have the stream buffer established, the line established, then the only other issue regarding zoning is a setback from the property lines. From what I'm thinking, is that correct, or is there something more you're thinking about that I can't see?
No, right, so in section 4.4.8, so, yep, so that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the concern is that if you move the house back any further, like you may.
The rear setback.
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
No, I get that, but I think what we would do is just sort of have a completely different footprint where, you know, it may be a smaller house, but something that would fit in within the 125 feet and obviously the BRL lines of the zoning too.
Thank you, Bianca. You have.
Yeah, that was my big question. And then I saw there was a comment about septic. I don't think we're looking at doing septic here. We would do a public water and sewer connection to the available facilities, and I think WSSC's comment said that that would be acceptable.
Is well and septic on the.
Yeah, I don't think I don't think well and septic would work on this project anyway, but I think also the zoning, I think with the categories W1, S1, we could easily, you know, it might be a extension required, or the water house, sewer house connection will have to be extended to the line on near Lay Hill Road, but that's kind of what I was thinking, that's how we would have to do it.
This is WSSC, yes, is partially in the correct category. It's water and sewer in category 1, so they can get connection to public system. And yes, you need to have a extension, especially for water.
Yeah, we can't really hear you. Is it possible to clear the mic so that the comments can just be clear?
Could you please repeat your comments? We had a hard time hearing you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, much
Yes.
better.
Yeah, I was trying to see what is the microphone.
There you
I
go.
was, yeah. This parcel is in the right category. This is water and sewer service category 1, so they can get a service from WCC. For the water is I think that we need a extension. And for the sewer, I will need to confirm that the sewer is going through a WCC easement because you will need to cross a small part that I think is private. So I don't know how we will do the sewer house connection, but you can do it. Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah, this is something that we need to figure out. But yes, you can apply for a connection to water and sewer to WCC.
Okay, thank you so much. Appreciate it. That's about all the questions I had, and I'll talk to the owners and see how they want to proceed. Probably my recommendation is to start off with the NRIFSD and maybe another concept as part of that, and go forward that way.
Yeah, I want to just bring up one thing, also. So, okay, if we can proceed with the NRI to determine the buffer, but also when this comes in for forest conservation plan, that stream buffer will need to be planted and also will need to be in an easement. So I think realistically, in terms of a homeowner, from a homeowner standpoint, there would be essentially wouldn't have any yard. Because that whole stream buffer would be an easement, just so, yeah, for your awareness, so you know that, that's gonna be what it'll look like. It'll be
really tight, yeah.
Really tight.
Yeah, I get that. Thank you for saying that. That's a good point to keep in mind. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
We look forward to whatever you want to submit next, and we'll keep chugging along.
Thank you all. Appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
That plan in West County, 9313 Langford Court. In just a second, we'll have the folks from West County. We'll be on the line in 1 second.
Hey, Neil. Thanks, everyone. Good morning. We are here for the concept plan discussion for 9313 Langford. The applicant folks are here. Thank you for joining us. As we're speaking, I'm just trying to bring up our plan to share. Bear with me one moment. All right, so comments were transmitted last night. So with this concept plan, this is our review process ends here at DRC. So, should you choose to move forward beyond the concept plan with this particular development concept that you've shown us, the administrative subdivision plan would be the next kind of step in that process, formal step in that process. So the outlot that you're showing, or the design for the outlot that you're showing us here is a flag lot, or could potentially be something like a lot without frontage if you went with an easement instead of direct connection to that circle. The flag lot, as the comments that were conveyed to you hit on, flag lots present a number of challenges in terms of building separation requirements for both the rear lot line and the lot that's between it and the roadway. There is existing forest on the property, so some of our comments touch on the need to evaluate that, consider that as part of any of your next steps in due diligence. And some of the other comments that I just want to highlight touched on the driveway, the access configuration down to Langford Court, and things that need to be considered there with the existing drainage, swale, fire access needs, and so forth. One item I did just note here that I think did not get saved into the comments, but I want to make sure that you're aware of. This would also be a residential infill project, so those requirements would apply as well. And the most limiting one there would be the 20% lot coverage limitation. So the zone gives you 25, the standard knocks it down to 20. Those are kind of a summary of our key comments. So I just want to turn it over to you all to ask any questions you have of us and public agency staff.
I mean, obviously flag lot is concerned because of some of the setbacks. And for most of you who have not seen it, we've been looking at an additional concept that may be able to eliminate that possibility by reconfiguring the existing lot line between the existing lot 4 and what will be the new lot. By reconfiguring that, we think we might be able to get a configuration that would eliminate that flag lot, which I think would kind of set us in a different direction. As far as the driveway, I think that's definitely solvable by doing a common apron through there and then just branching off into the individual lots. So I don't think that's a big issue. One question I did have, there was some discussion about sidewalk and providing enough room within the right of way for a sidewalk. Typically with these things, we do have to, if we're going to have, especially the swale section, we usually have to try and dedicate a little bit of room so that we can get a shoulder swale sidewalk and whatnot. The one issue I see with this is if we do have to dedicate, is with regard to the existing house. Is right now that's pretty much sitting on the setback line. And does that become an issue? If we would have to dedicate it, which would then put that in potential violation of the setbacks. So I don't know the answer to that, and I don't know if anybody does at this point, or.
I think it's a good question that I'll have to follow up with you on. I don't think anyone here would know the answer to that off the top of their head. Yep.
So hi, I'm Carlos Pesmina. I made the comment on the transportation planning division in regards to the sidewalk and the frontage. So the reason why we flag it is because the project doesn't quite meet our de minimis criteria, which would then trigger construction. We don't feel like construction is really necessary for this type of project. We would suggest going through an administrative subdivision so that you can work with Sam to figure out a way to waive that construction. My guess, and I'll defer to Emily to answer the prevailing question about dedication, but in terms of what we would like to see displayed on a formal plan is how it would work within the right of way, and basically make sure that the swale, the sidewalk, and the right of way are accurately represented on all of the cross sections. And also to ensure that there is compliance with fire access as well. I believe Marie did have some comments on some concerns about about fire access within this project, but in terms of how we would like to see the configuration, I do think that it is a possibility that you will likely need to get a dedication, and you will likely need to work with DPS to assess whether a public utility easement or a public access easement will be necessary for that frontage.
Yeah, I could definitely see it needing a public or a access easement if we do with the shared driveway.
So yeah, I hope that provides some clarity, and I'm happy to speak with you offline as well.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I mean, that was just one thing because I've had this come up on some other projects when we're trying to put a sidewalk in with the swale section. It tends to expand out what we can do within, unless we start to kind of crunch down some of those other numbers.
Another thing that I noticed is that there's significant grading as well too, so that would also create some serious constraint ability to construct the possible sidewalk as well. Plus forestry, the type of make of the pavement would be very it would not be feasible, despite the fact that it does trigger, for example, our build.
Touched on the flag lots. One thing, and I don't know, is Marie on?
Yes.
Online here? You had some comment regarding fire hydrant. There's a fire hydrant down at the intersection from Langford Court that lengthwise is right around 400 feet. How much flexibility do we have on working with that?
Water supply is one of those things we don't really get particularly flexible on. If you can lay out a plan and send it over, I'll take a look. You know, my biggest concern on this is you need to figure out a turnaround because the Langford Court turnaround is not compliant for current code and new development. You can use your shared driveway as one leg of that, and then perhaps use the bulb as to kind of create a funky 3-point turn using your shared driveway when you get that put together. So keep that in mind as you design this. Okay.
I mean, want to take a look. I mean, the cul-de-sac that's shown on this plan is from county GIS, so it's, you know, it may not be completely accurate. We'll have to go out and measure the size of the bulb and the size of the internal island. I do know there's nothing in the island. There's no trees or anything, so we do have that we might be able to work with that if the truck had to drive across it or around it. But
islands for, again, current code for new development, which would include this new house, your island can be no more than a 15-foot radius and no more than 30 feet across. So keep that in mind when you measure it.
Okay.
So out of curiosity, what is the width of the current apron or the apron that you're proposing to install?
Well, I mean, if we went with a shared, we'd have to do 20 feet.
Yeah.
Which comments or questions did you have there?
Oh, yeah. So we actually do have a question for Oriel about presenting a strong justification for removing the forest. Could you help us about what constitutes a strong justification? For
Yeah, recently the state delineate high priority urban forests. So in the next stage, when you come with a forest conservation plan or forest conservation exemption, you will have to provide almost like variance while you're removing the forest. Basically, we'll have to approve, you know, based on the zoning. There's a reasoning why you have to provide, yeah, justification why you would try to remove the forest, yeah. So it's a layer that is on our MC Atlas. You can click it, urban prairie forest. And so that's.
So would that be a limiting thing or?
It can, but you have, in most cases, if you go through the process, like 4 questions, you answer those questions. If you show that you can meet all those requirements, then you should be able to remove the forest. Yeah. Although I would like to say that there's a channel in the right side of the property. Once you come with a natural resource inventory or a forest conservation exemption, we might be able to see if any stream on it in the property. And that might definitely limit the way how you can build on it.
Yeah, definitely.
Sure. So,
Yeah, I mean, there was an NRI done on a property lot right next door to this, right adjacent to it that.
I'm not aware of it.
Yeah, that showed that and did not classify it as a stream because it would have affected, because that's almost right on the property line.
Yeah, but we will need to see,
Yeah.
the new one.
But you don't, as far as I know, you don't want to see forest conservation easement on a lot of this size. So even if we were saving forests per se, or tree canopy, we still wouldn't be considered that forest saved.
So repeat the whole.
Well, I mean, that's been my experience is, even if we would to save forest on this, say we were to save 10,000 square feet in the back, you would not want to see an easement on the property.
Yeah, that's correct. It's too small. However, under the new change of the forest conservation law, any streamline buffers, they need to be reforested.
Well, yeah, I'm saying.
So we won't definitely put an easement.
Right.
There's some cases that the board might want to make some easement in small lots, but that's not what we have seen.
Another quick point to add about the forest and the trees is that they contribute to the existing character of this neighborhood. So the urban design team is also recommending that you protect as many trees as possible, not just for the environmental reason, or I guess in addition to the environmental reasons, also to maintain the character of the neighborhood, which I'm sure the neighbors will appreciate, and I'm sure that will help you also as you continue talking to your neighbors and seek their support.
And one of the things as we were looking at reconfiguring the lot, we may be able to push the house forward towards the street, which would allow us to save some more of the trees in the rear.
Yeah, that's exactly something we would support and encourage you to do. The closer the house can come to the cul-de-sac in the front, the more of the existing trees could be protected, preserved, and less impact in those trees. So I think that's going to be really important because most of your property now is covered with trees, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so
Probably
yeah, I think that would be great if you could do it, and if you can meet, of course, all the zoning requirements that the West County team has mentioned.
We have another question that isn't actually shown on this concept, but it's related to the alternative that Jeff has been working on. So I'll just ask it in generality, whoever can answer that. So measuring the lot width at the front building line, our interpretation is that you just, if the face of the house is angled, let's say toward the cul-de-sac, you just, draw a line parallel to that part of the street on the cul-de-sac on the building face, and you measure the width basically of the lot with that line. I don't know how well I actually explained that. If you want to add that, Jeff, basically want to make sure that we're on the same page about how the lot width should be measured.
Actually, what you're showing here, you're asking, is that technically correct?
So let's say that that same house, if we rotate that to an angle, so the face is kind of like tilted toward the street, would that line tilt with the house as well?
It would be coincidental with wherever the front building line for that house would be. So if you turn the house, the front building line is going to turn your measuring point would turn is my interpretation. Is that drive with you, Stephanie?
DPS zoning is on here, they can give us their.
Lindy, are you on here?
Yeah, I'm here, and I think it will depend on how that house is laid out. So we will look at it case by case, depending on how that configuration is. So, and you also like the rear yard has some impact on that too. It can't say it's so angled, it almost touched the rear yard and you still consider that as front building line. No, we wouldn't agree with that. So again, we need to see the layout.
So I think that the alternative idea that you shared with me late yesterday may be a good idea to share that with Amy and see if you can get a little bit more feedback on that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Amy.
One more question about the island. I just have a note that the island cannot be more than 30 feet, in diameter. So if it actually is in fact built with more than 30 feet of diameter, what would be the implication of that on our project?
Are you referring to down here in the roadway?
Yes.
But Marie.
Yeah, I think that was one of Marie's fire access comments.
Right.
We may have to look at trying to do some type of a turnaround, possibly partially on with our new driveway. So essentially a fire truck could come in and do sort of a 3-point turn.
Okay.
Or modify the island. This would be the other option. I don't know if we had anything. You had any other questions or?
No, good. Guess we have a few follow-ups to do with a few of you. We'll get in touch, I guess, within the next few days, so we can get those answered as well.
Yep. Yeah, I'm happy to follow up on those questions regarding the concept that you shared yesterday, and then with the question about the dedication and how that might, if there is dedication needed along the front of existing lot 4, what does that mean in terms of the house setback and conformity? So I'll look into that. Happy to get back to you.
Sounds good.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, thank you.
Remember, no facility, no dedication. So like, if you there's no reason if there's no facility, like a sidewalk or something like that, or a swale, if that's not gonna be constructed, then we don't want the
dedication, right?
So even if DPS would.
You want to waive it, you have to show it. There should be something there for us to waive.
Right,
If you don't
right.
show anything, you can't waive it.
You waive it, which means we wouldn't construct it.
Dedication, is that right?
It's kind of complicated. Now I think about it. So like usually if you.
I mean,
Still
my
need
understanding.
to show the sidewalk on the drawings maybe, so that DPS can then collect a fee in lieu of construction.
Right.
Yes.
So we have to condition it appropriately that if it was waived.
Yeah.
Then no dedication is required. If it wasn't, then they have to.
Right.
Find that.
But you have to show like the swale.
Yeah.
And so the swale would, then you'd have to show the sidewalk, and so that will determine whether or not where the sidewalk goes and if you need additional dedication.
Yes, my understanding was would require writing dedication regardless. The PIE cannot be taken without any facilities.
Yeah, that's right. That's what I was wrong. That's what it is. No dedication technically easement. The easement is, if we ask for an easement, we won't do that if there's no facility. Sorry, I was wrong.
Gotcha. The solution that too, instead of just PIE, we can make it PIE, PAE, or a combination of PIE, PAE.
But that's if we have a facility.
Yeah, but I mean, that one, because, again, that's true because it's a little bit complicated. PIE is just for maintenance. It allows DOT to maintain the facility. If there's nothing inside it, that's true because why would we get a PIE? There's nothing to maintain. But if we change a document that says it's accounting for public access and maintenance.
Which basically makes it dedication,
Exactly, makes it.
or at least in
Well,
our attorneys will, that's their determination.
But from a zoning standpoint, if there's an easement which would allow access for construction and maintenance, would that affect setback for a house?
Perhaps not.
So, if that's an issue with dedication, that might be another avenue that.
Right, but if there's no
But if
facility,
there's facility, then you can't.
then we won't
accept it.
take it. Generally.
Yeah,
Okay.
something for the attorneys to.
The $1 million question here is, just to confirm. I just saw this thing on Google Image. There seems to be an existing swale already. So being that it's already existing, would that also take into account for the easement or the dedication?
What is the question again?
If it's already built out and it's an existing swale, would that already be accounted into the easement?
Yeah, but I mean, if they don't have to build a sidewalk,
Right.
they don't have to build a swale either, because, I mean, if you construct a swale, it has to tie to something, has to outfall something, just nothing to receive it.
If there's no other swale along the frontage, along other people's frontages, then it's like kind of useless.
I think that the swale runs like up on the image here to the left of the driveway and then goes down that to the left side of Langford ties into the drains. I think
If you right now struck a sidewalk, you
We'd
kind of.
probably shift it around, yeah,
Yeah, it
yeah,
might be moved a little bit, but.
yeah.
Yeah. Isn't engineering fun, you guys?
Well, it's just, the sidewalk issue's been popping up on every project. And
Yeah.
with large projects, it's fine, but these small little infill things, it's difficult to.
Well, if it
Sometimes.
connects to something, then we definitely want it. And then the rest of it is show it on the plans, and then we'll make a determination of whether or not we can waive, DPS can waive it. That's great.
If there was a mechanism, we would set a fee at this point. Which I'm not sure if that's possible or not. That would be a lot easier. That way we don't have to ask for additional dedication or easement or anything else. We just get a fee up front. That's it. But I'm not sure if that's the way to go.
There you go. See you guys later.
I mean, he ran the numbers for de minimis, like the fee in lieu is under $10,000. But yeah, it would be based on our proportionality guidelines. We can discuss that a little later, and I think we also need to circle back with Emily to figure out like what the best dedication structure would actually like entail.
Very good.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for your time. We appreciate it.
Of course.